on a mission to eliminate racism, empower women, and promote peace, justice, freedom, and dignity for all. This is the YWCA Hour with your hosts, YWCA Executive Director Karen Bell Dancy and YWCA Associate Director Maisha Essex. Welcome in to the YWCA Hour.
All right, welcome back into Ticket Sundays. Harrison Arns on the ones and twos. As always, this is the YWCA Hour. You can join in 402-464-5685. That is the Starter Heyman text line. As always, you can put a face to the voice. Facebook, YouTube, X, Allo, Channel 961. You can catch it on the podcast later, even Amazon Video, if that's the way you choose to do so. It's been a minute since I've been the board op for this one,
right?
But we got the host, as always, in here. So without further ado, I will go ahead and throw it to you guys.
Thank you, Harrison. We're really excited today because we have some special guests within the room, some scholars that's here to talk to us a little bit more about their take, and a really, really important take. I think a lot of times during this time of election and things like that, we get certain peoples and groups that are not necessarily thought of during this time. And one of them being scholars, or those who are under 18, right? And what they want and what they think about what's happening in our society today. And it's really important because you will be 18, right? Yeah. You will be 18. You will have the ability to vote. And it's very important that we are connected with what all of our citizens want within our community, including the youth, because they are extremely powerful. And so we're grateful today to talk to some really powerful youth today about their take on what's happening. Karen?
Yes, I am so excited to be here to hear these young voices, and also their sponsor that works with them. Both of these young ladies attend Lincoln Public Schools, which is a great thing, and their sponsor that works with them through the school system and with other community engagement activities, Pete Ferguson.
Well, I was looking around. I thought I was one of the young people. When you said sponsor, then you threw my name out. You brought me down a little bit. I wanted to be one of the 16, 17-year-olds.
Right, Pete. No, I counted you in the youth.
Thank you. I appreciate that. No,
you know, we're going to
that.
start out like that. That's okay.
All that build up, and then all of a sudden it's like, ugh.
Oh, yeah.
I have responsibilities. But no, thank you for having us in this space.
Yeah, so if our youth here want to go ahead, our scholars, and just introduce themselves and, tell us your name, your grade, and what school you currently attend.
All right, my name is Abina Bonsu. I'm a senior at East High School. And actually, I am 18, so I will be voting at the election.
Yes. Go, Abina! Yeah.
There you go. There you
All
go.
All right. Thank you.
My name is Rafa. I am a junior at Lincoln North Star and will not be voting in this current election.
Okay. But you have your eyes on the election, right, Rafa?
Of course I do, of course.
Okay. Okay. Well, hey, Pete, you want to tell us a little bit more about the work that you do with the youth?
No, appreciate the opportunity to be in. Peter Ferguson. I will be voting in this election. And every election I've had the opportunity to vote in and get the opportunity just to engage with these scholars as well as a number of other scholars, whether it be through Lincoln Public Schools, whether it be through the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Youth Rally. At 11 o'clock each Sunday, we have a show here on the Ticket.
Right.
I'm thankful to DP and Harrison with Bigger Than the Score. And really, for me, I always talk about my purpose. And my purpose is to empower, but I want to take the EM off because that means that I'm giving somebody something. And young people, and I heard this just recently, a couple months ago, but everybody has power. And so when you talk about empower, we see that on so many things. It's, I'm not empowering them. I'm illustrating to them that they have power and where they can use it and that they need to use it. And then my other part of my purpose is to educate. And not only am I giving out information, but I also want to make sure I'm in space where I'm receiving that. And then my last part is just engage. I think that's the piece that we don't do often enough. And having the opportunity to provide platforms, to provide resources, to elevate young people's voices, to promote positive youth action. That really, to me, is what I've been gifted, but what I've also been tasked to do. And so been able to do that not only through the school districts, but like I said, we'll be celebrating the 30th year of the annual Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Youth Rally in March and January through other platforms as well.
That's awesome, Pete. And we do appreciate
Yes, that's
the
awesome.
work that you do in the community and the role model and mentor that you are working with our young folks. It's been our pleasure to collaborate and work with you
Most
on
definitely.
many of those things.
Yeah, Pete, I like what you just said about empowering and the resource that you give. Because, you know, with YWCA, our mission is to eliminate racism
Exactly.
and empower women.
Right?
Yeah.
I was thinking about
No,
that. I
and
want
again,
Pete
I
said
see
that.
it, and it's not to discount it. It's not to
no.
discount it, but I think it's to recognize
yeah.
the power in the word.
Very
Yes.
much.
And we talk about oftentimes superheroes. No, I always hear, and I do, and I pick these things up because I got to change my logo.
Yeah.
And it
Oh.
says empower, educate, and engage.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I think about is somebody said, you know, all these young people and everybody wants a superhero. And superheroes come when? In time of distress.
Yeah.
If you're fortunate and you live in the area, like, or if you're connected to the person who actually has the alter ego as the superhero. And so we need Sherpas, people to guide and people to lead, and then they hand them off to the next individual. Because if you're looking for superheroes, they contain all the power. They don't ever give it to anybody. They just save. And so for me, just recognizing the context of the word and what you're doing with it is instilling into others. You're not instilling it. It's sometimes you're bringing it out.
Yeah, sometimes you are bringing it out. And, you know, with our organization in that intersectionality of
Yes.
women and race, you know, the reason why we say empower is because at that time we were giving of a lot of women and people in the community giving to other people resources in regards to time, talent, treasure
Yes.
that was needed at that point so that they could sustain themselves, because there were times where they didn't have it. Majority of the clientele that we work with at that time didn't have it. And so but what I was saying is I love the perspective that you have on the word to say that it's already within them. It's just trying to figure out how we contribute and lighten that spark so that they can see it for themselves and, you know, have that autonomy over their own power and how they use it. So I love that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so much that piece is left out, especially for our girls of color in the school systems, because so often they don't have those folks in the spaces to really inspire and mentor to them. Am I onto something, young ladies? Thank you. And so I think it's real important how we position that and we really focus that on our youth that look like us. And I'm going to go a step further, Pete. I'm selfish. I have to make sure that they receive the power and
Yes.
the respect
Yes.
and the self-esteem, because I hope to retire in a couple of years. So I need these
off the
to
baton.
be. There we go.
Yep, yep.
You're passing the baton. You're so right, Maisha. And then I'll need them to be my Social Security administrator, my
Yeah.
Medicare administrator, all of those things. So I would like to get to know the two of you just a little bit better, Abina and Rafa. Tell us perhaps, where do you see yourselves in maybe about 5 years, and what will you be doing? Do you think you will stay within this community, or you may even transition out of Lincoln? Either one of you.
Well, I think talking about what I'm gonna do in 5 years, in my head, I'm like, ooh, I don't really know.
Okay.
I'm probably gonna stay in Lincoln because I know I'm probably gonna stay here to go to college here at
Okay.
UNL.
Okay.
But yeah, 5 years, that is like the year after I get out of college. So
Mhm.
hopefully I'll have a job, and hopefully I'll be continuing to empower Black voices and do what
Okay.
I do right now. So yeah.
Awesome.
That's all right.
Awesome.
I would agree with that. I think in 5 years I'd be like a senior in college, and so I'm hoping to be a teacher someday. So I'd be going like the education route. I'd probably stay in Lincoln because as much as I'd like to, deny it, I love Lincoln. So I'd be here.
Me too.
It's just home, you know what I mean? Like I'd be
Right.
close to family, I'd be close to friends, I'd know these streets, and so
Yes.
I'd probably just stay here. I'd be graduating in about a year, and I'd hopefully, like Abina said, be doing what I'm doing currently and just be, learning and teaching.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's so good to know that you think that this community still has space for you and for you to remain. That, for me, that gives us hope. That really does. That gives us hope.
It does. And, I like how both of you talked about, even at this time, it's really hard. I know we do ask this question, and I know you probably receive the question a lot. What are you going to do in the future? And it's really hard to think about that, especially with all that's going on right now, with what pressures you probably have right now in school and in the community at the moment. Sometimes it's really hard to think about the 5-year goal. But what I really liked is that both of you talked about specifically empowering Black voices and then learning and teaching. And how Karen said that, you all love or like that there is space here for you. But what I heard you say in my head was, I'm also here to expand that space and that capacity with empowering Black voices. And then also the fact that you want to learn and teach in this community is amazing, because there are some people, a lot of us who look like us, who do not feel like the space is really big enough. It's really encompassing or welcoming or sufficient enough or inclusive enough for us to remain here. So the fact that you're saying, I'm going to be a part of that solution by ensuring that Black voices are empowered and also being in this community to teach is just amazing. I don't know if you understand what you just said and the power of what you just said, because you're like, I don't know what I'm going to do in 5 years, but just saying I'm going to be here and I'm going to expand capacity and space. That's what we ask for. I think as a person who is involved in community and trying to make community better, that's the one thing, that's the one guiding light, what you just said right there. And that's amazing.
Yeah, and programs like Teach for America, they're made for you. That program will help support you as you go through your academic career. So think about that. We can talk about some of those things for yourself, specifically for the goals that you have stated. So we are excited for that, because that gives me excitement about that next generation that's right behind you. And that's what's so important. We have to. So I know thinking 5 years ahead, whoa, that's a vision. But now I'm talking the next generation. But yeah, as Maisha said about passing that baton off. So the more that we help to support you along your journey, the two of you, then that baton is so easily passed. And we know our community is in good hands.
Okay, so we had a few questions that we sent out to you because we really wanted to make sure that we were able to talk to you all a little bit more about what's going on at the moment. And so one of the questions that we had that I'm excited to get your perspective on is, right now we know a lot is going on in regards to the election because it's the presidential election, and we're getting a lot of information right now, and we're hearing a lot of different voices from different communities. So in regards to the youth and the young community, what do you think the focus should be from a young person's perspective in regards to the election?
I think that like a young person's perspective when it comes to the election is to understand that there will be different opinions. It's something that even I've had to come to terms with. Not everyone is going to have the same opinion as me. Even if like you strongly believe your opinion is right, there will always be people with different opinions, and that's what makes like politics the space that it is, democracy what it is. Everybody gets to vote for whoever they want to, but you still have to be able to love them for who they are and still accept them, even if you don't think they're right. But I think in that same way that people should be educated about who they vote for, what they're voting for, and why they're voting for it. Because I feel like as a young person, I see, like, especially with the student vote that just went out,
Right.
it's like
Yes.
a lot of people, they tend to vote for what their parents voted for, and then you ask them more about it and they don't know why. They can't explain to you why. And I think it's important as a young person to stay educated. Like literally since the 2016 election when I was in 4th grade, I've been excited for this year when I can vote. I've been excited for this year when I can vote.
love it.
And I've been excited to just stay educated on what's going on in the political
Yes.
space. And I think that's something that like every young person should do. Just continue to be educated. Why are you voting for what you're voting for? Why do you believe that?
That is so awesome, Abina. And with this being your first election, what are some of the issues that are key for you as you listen to the different candidates talk about their perspectives and what they will do? What are some of the things that you believe are important?
Well, just in general, being a black woman, I care all about anything that has to do about racial issues or issues about women's rights. And I also truly deeply care about immigration laws and immigration issues because both of my parents are immigrants. And being a first generation American, I know that it's basically my duty as a voter now to be protecting people such as my parents who are going to immigrate and like protect them from any racism or any harm that might come to them. And like, yeah.
Wow. Are you going to major in law or?
No. That's a lot of reading.
You have that's true, but you have a great voice and your perspective. Just, it doesn't really astound me. I'm just so proud of it.
It
Thank
is.
you.
It's amazing. And what you just said in regards to the research and what the youth should be doing and where should they start. And I think when you talked about your personal experience, that's the best place to start.
Yes.
And your personal perspective on immigration and your life and your life's journey and your family's journey. What am I involved in? What is my identity? And how does it connect to what's going on in society? And I think that's a great place for the youth to start who are trying to figure out their own issues and values and morals and what's important to them and what they want to uplift. Think about yourself and your identity and your community. Are they treated fairly? You know, what can be in place to protect it? And so I think in regards to you talking about research, that is a great place for someone to start is with the self. And so that's great. Great perspective.
Yes, yes. Rafa, what would you say to some of the adults? And when you think about the different initiatives and the different candidates and all of that, and especially some adults that seem like they're not really tuned in to what's happening.
I mean, I'd probably ask them to think about if they were, a scholar, if they were, young currently, how would they want the world to look like? Because I think a lot of, seasoned professionals, as Pete would call them, think on how
Don't be calling nobody old now. Don't be calling nobody old.
Did he mention my name when he
No,
said
it's just a safety factor.
I'm just doing a little check.
That was a whole workshop right there.
Seasoned professionals. I love it.
I love it.
I think a lot of them think, what's best for them now. But, if we're going to be honest and if I'm going to be blunt with it, you're not going to be here forever. And so how would you want the world to be for the youth that you surround yourself with, your grandkids, your children, your nieces, nephews? You're building a world for us, and we're going to be building a world for the generation below us. And so the world has to continue to move. You cannot make the world a perfect place for you currently because you're going to be gone eventually. We're going to be gone eventually. And so you must, create a world that is adaptable and a world that is changeable, a world that, is going to be best for whoever is living in it currently.
Wow.
Well said. And with that being said, unless you got anything else to add here.
No, I think that is a perfect time to.
Absolutely. With that being said, we'll go ahead and throw to our first break here. Again, this is the YWCA Hour, the W. Don't go anywhere. We got 2 more segments on the other side. We'll keep things rolling on a Ticket Sunday.
Back to the YWCA Hour. Here are your hosts, Karen Baldancy and Maisha Essex.
All right, welcome back in to the W, the YWCA Hour. Harrison Arns on the 1s and 2s. We got the host, Maisha, and Karen.
A seasoned professional. A seasoned professional.
Hey, but,
This is nothing nice. Why do you do that?
off to a great start here on the second segment. You guys can join in. 402-464-5685. Put a face to the voice, Facebook, YouTube, X, Allo, Channel 961. With that being said, I'll throw it back over to the host.
Oh, absolutely. We're having an amazing
Yes, we
conversation
are.
with our scholars today about what's happening, of course, in our society with the election going on. But one thing I wanted to talk about was that we discussed a little bit about the world changing and that it has to be adaptable and flexible, right? Because we cannot fix a space for where we are now because, we have different things that'll pop up in the future. We have different communities that'll have different needs. And so we have to make a space that can be adaptable and flexible in regards to inclusivity. And I think that was such a great point because what motivated kind of our grandfathers and great grandfathers in regards and great grandmothers and our family members in regards to voting is different now, right?
Yeah.
The goals are different and what motivates us are a little bit different. And that brings me to the question of hope. We talked about this in our last podcast here, that what gives you hope in regards to going out and making sure that your voice is heard? Because sometimes in our society, with everything going on, we can become hopeless, right? We can feel like that what we're saying and what we're doing may not be making a difference, but we continue to hear the message of, no, you have to go out and vote. You have to be a part of this process. You have to be a part of this process. And sometimes when we look around, we don't see any of the benefits sometimes when we do share our voice, right? And so I wanted to ask our scholars today about your generation, and what you wish for in regards to what you want for your generation, and then what gives you hope. And then also on the flip side, what gives you pause? What scares you a little bit?
You know, Rafa, you can take this one.
I think one thing that gives me hope is I work with kids right now, and I absolutely love it. And they are just so loving, so kind. And, you know, they haven't been, I don't want to say they haven't been in the world long enough, but they haven't really experienced, like, obviously everybody experiences hardships, but they are just so innocent and so kind. And being around them really is so, you know, powerful. That's what gives me hope, because I know I'm not creating a world for myself. I'm creating a world for the kids. I'm creating a world for my siblings to not experience the hardships that I've experienced and to make their lives easier. And so that's one thing that gives me hope. I can go home and I can see my siblings and, you know, want better for them. I don't want them to have the experiences I had. I want them to have even better experiences. And so that's one thing that gives me hope. And one thing that gives me a little bit of, you know, makes me a little bit anxious is probably just the lack of education, probably, you know, being around my peers and seeing some of the things they talk about. It's like, you know, yeah, we are teenagers, but more than that, we're citizens of, you know, the United States of America. We should be able to, you know, discuss things, and we should be able to, you know, have a little bit more maturity in our conversations, and obviously be a teen, be a kid, you know, be silly and stuff. But, like, you have to have a little bit more consciousness onto, you know, what the world is today and how you're contributing to it.
Have you talked to your peers about those kinds of things?
Absolutely. Every single day at lunch, my friends can vouch for this.
Okay.
You know, we have a political talk. We are, you know, we're
Okay.
citizens, you know.
Y'all
I got
on
my
lunch and
citizenship
learn.
in 6th grade, and so I'm going to put that to use. I'm going to vote as soon as I can, because that's, you know, that's the ability that I have. There's so many countries around the world where women can't vote or people can't vote.
Yes.
And I'm so lucky to be able to live in a country where, you know, I like my vote matters. And so to not put that
Yes.
to use is kind of, you know, it's just immoral, if I'm being honest.
Very much.
Yeah. I completely agree with that. Something that gives me hope is definitely the next generation. Like, I also worked with kids for a while, and it was just like, I go in there and, like, the room lights up, because these little kids, they're just so, their eyes are wide, and they've just, like, as she said, it's like they haven't really experienced hardships. And it's like they're so, like, sweetly innocent, but also they want to learn. Like, I remember a question that came up to me when I was working with kids. They would always ask me, "Why are you brown?" Which I thought was so funny, but at the same time, it's like they're not being discriminatory or anything. They're just genuinely curious. They're like,
Asking the question,
they're
Right.
like, why are you brown? But it's just like that blissful ignorance and just like how sweet they are gives me hope. Something else that gives me hope, though, is the equity cadre, because I just found out about it last year. So as a junior, and I thought it was like the most wonderful thing ever. And also going in there and seeing like middle schoolers using their voice, I think that is such a beautiful thing. And that's something that I would have loved to do when I was in middle school. And seeing other middle schoolers doing that just gives me so much hope.
Can you tell our listeners just a little bit more about the cadre?
So the Scholar Equity Cadre, it's a group of scholars from LPS, and we meet once a month to discuss how to make our district a more equitable place and to have like more of a level playing ground for everybody, literally everybody, no matter who you are, where you're from, making sure that our district is welcoming to you. And I found out about this last year when I was covering it in our school's yearbook with my friend, and it was just like, my eyes were like open, and I was like, we are actually making change. It's not just like, oh, I hope the racism ends. No, we are actually like changing it.
And one of the things is I just want to say to them is, when you talked about hope, what brings me hope, what brings me purpose is just the opportunity to be in spaces or know that they have the opportunities to be in spaces and discover, as Abina said, spaces, whether it be like the Equity Cadre, other places have different things. What you do at the YW, the youth rally. What gives me pause is that there are places and individuals who don't want those spaces to exist.
Right.
And so for me, that's what keeps me up at night, that they don't want my daughter or don't want other individuals, whether it be, individuals of diversity or non-individuals of diversity being in these spaces. They don't want individuals speaking to this. They don't want individuals to have power to put their voice forward. And so that is what gives me pause for them, but also gives me hope that when they're in these spaces, that somebody said, you know what, Mr. Pete, it was this first year that we had the cadre, and somebody said, she says, this is a place for me. It's not just a safe space, because we always talk about using the term safe. She goes, it's a brave space. She said, it's the only time that I've been able to be in space that I felt like I could truly be who I am. And because of her situation and her status, et cetera, that I can talk freely about who and be who I am in this space. And so I want those brave spaces to exist, not just once a month, but 24/7. And that's what we need to work for. And so that gives me hope, but it also gives me pause that some only want that 5 hours, not the 24 hours.
Right. So if we have some parents that are listening to this, because if I was the parent and I'm hearing this and hearing the effect of it and the projected outcomes, how could my child get involved with this?
Yeah, that's always a great question. And, capacity always becomes an issue.
Sure.
And so I would love, I think the YW, I think any organization knows that. And we'd love to.
Because they're going to call the YW.
Yeah. But how can they, they can reach out to me at Lincoln Public Schools. Again, but we only have so many spots. But what they can do is they can demand a brave space, a brave, inclusive space, an inclusive space of excellence within the spaces that their child resides.
That's
and
right.
that is, I get 6-8 hours a day or a month. They're educators, and we have phenomenal educators. Okay? We have phenomenal administrators. But what they need to do is make sure that they have their scholars in a place of inclusive excellence each and every day. No program is going to elevate your scholars' grades or lower your scholars' grades. Not once a month for 8 hours. And I love how they speak about the feeling that this
think
puts
of the
forward.
numbers. The numbers tell it.
Yeah, but the fact of the
won't
matter
happen.
is, I'm not the biggest. I should not be the biggest connect in their life.
Yes.
I should not be the highlight of their life. And I'm appreciative every time they mention me in that case. But the fact of the matter is, we have people that touch them every day from K through 12. They are in spaces that they are in on a regular basis. And so make their school building a place of inclusive excellence. Make Starbucks a place of inclusive excellence. Excuse me, the mill. The mill.
Okay.
A place of exclusive, make the mill a place of inclusive excellence.
Right.
Make the movie theater a place of inclusive excellence. Make the food truck a place of inclusive excellence.
Right.
So as a parent's calling, make that call. If that's not what it is, make that call there. Because this is where my child goes. This team is what my child is playing on, and it needs to be this place that's not just a safe space, but a brave space. I don't know, Rafa, you might have things
That's
that
awesome.
add to that, but that was my sermon for the day.
Thank you. Amen.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that, we go to the cadre once a month, but the cadre is in us every single day, all day, We can't just go to the cadre and expect the world to be different. We have to carry our beliefs, and carry our heart on our sleeve, like they say, because it's not like you're going to be able to change the world by going to a place for 8 hours and, listening. You have to really put that into action. And so a lot of my friends think that, I go to the cadre and then I come back and I'm a different person. But the truth is I am a different person. I go and I listen to my friends, and we're able to have these really, I guess, adult conversations, as some would call them, and just, really see what I would want the world to look like currently, being with a whole bunch of scholars who have those same ideas and want the world to become a better place is just so powerful that, you know, the next day I'm at school, I'm a different person, you know, I'm striving to make the world a better place. And so the cadre can't just be a place you go to. The cadre has to become something you carry along with you, even if you are not in the cadre. You know, the belief that you can make the world a better place, the belief that, you know, equity should be everywhere, all the time, anywhere, you know, that's something you have to carry along with you. So,
Yeah, and it sounds like what we're all talking about here, what I've heard is just that it's a community effort. It's not just the individuals you talked about with the cadre. We can't just leave and come back and then all of a sudden the space is different. And with Pete talking about, you know, parents, you have to demand it. You have to go because it is a village. It is a community effort. And you do have power and autonomy in it. And so some of our parents who are listening, who are at the space or where they just don't understand, what can I do differently? How can I help? I think Pete just gave great examples of what you can do, that you can, a simple knock on the door will work. We work with a group where we do DEI training. And this is with adults, and we have to empower to do that. We got to give them some resources. We got to give into them a little bit to help them understand that even if you have a supervisor, you have a boss, you don't think they're going to listen. The fact that you're knocking on the door, that speaks value. And if it's not just one, but 2 to 3 to 4 people who are calling up to the schools and talking about this brave space and this inclusive space, does my child have the space where they can be authentic and not feel judged or discriminated against? Is this what this school is providing? And just asking the question will do a lot, especially if you have more than one person. And so being able to just start out at that place where I'm just going to call, I'm going to ask, and I'm going to knock on some doors. What clubs do you have here? Like you talked about, is it just once a month? Why are they once a month? Why can't they be once a week? What about us, you know, being able to have this a couple of times a week? So, you know, I just think that was really great to point out how we are a community, and it takes all of us to be able to make the change.
Wow. I can't wait for us to continue this conversation.
Absolutely. Do that as we head into our final break here. The YWCA Hour. Don't go anywhere.
Back to the YWCA Hour. Here are your hosts, Karen Baldancy and Maisha Essex.
All right, welcome back in to the WYWCA Hour. We got a couple of scholars in here. Pete Ferguson of Bigger Than the Score, and the host Maisha and Karen in here as well. And like I said, we're wrapping things up here. Not a ton of left time, so I'll get out of the way. I'll turn it over to the host.
Right, absolutely. So before we went to break, we were talking a little bit more about, you know, what gives us hope. And all of us, I think the thread was, is the next generation gives us hope. What we see in them and what we want for them, that gives us hope. But one thing that we were also talking about is what gives us pause. And we heard, you know, a couple of our co-hosts here talk about what gives us pause. But does anybody else want to talk about something that gives them pause?
So I talked about what gives me hope, and I think I forgot to say what gives me pause. But what gives me pause is a mix of both what Pete was saying and what Rafa was saying. Just like how uneducated people are, and how people want to close down spaces where we talk about important issues, like such as we are right now. Like today, I was sitting on TikTok, scrolling on TikTok, and I saw people at a political rally. And somebody started like asking them questions about the things they believe in. And somebody was like, hey, so what do you think about DEI? Should it be disbanded? And they were like, yes, disband DEI, get rid of it. And then they were like, oh, okay. Do you know what DEI stands for? And they were like, no, but we should get rid of it. And I was like, my goodness, like you don't even know what you are against.
Yeah.
And what you're against is such a fruitful thing. Like I've had so many fruitful, empowering discussions such as we are right now. And it's the fact that people want to get rid of it, but they don't even know what it is. That gives me pause. I'm like, oh my goodness. And they're happily uneducated. And like, as we said, like ignorance is bliss sometimes. And people they're completely comfortable not knowing what they're voting for, what they're believing in, but they will still strongly believe it. And that is just something that we can't afford to do.
Yeah.
And
That's
the way
right.
our country is moving forward. We can't afford to be ignorant because there are so many people around us that we need to learn about and know their backgrounds, but people just don't want to. And that gives me so much pause because I can't make them want to learn about DEI.
Right.
I can't make them want to learn about who they're voting for or why they're voting for it, but they're going to do it, and there's no way to stop them because they don't care.
Because they're happily uneducated. I am going to use that one, Abina. That's good.
Happily uneducated. Ignorance is bliss. And you know what gives me pause is the layer below that. The fact is one of them, that they're not educated and they don't want to be educated. The why behind it is what gives me pause. We live in a very divisive country, and we don't know at this point. It's becoming more and more divisive. So we don't really have the solution at this point, how to bring us together, right? And in order to understand that, you have to understand the people you're working with. And when someone is uneducated, becomes educated, and then still has that same stance, and when you try to talk to them, just because.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, it's just that is what gives me pause, because we do need to become a country that's less divisive, right? The more that we're starting to see things in this country that we haven't seen before. Ballot boxes being blown up, like people throwing, things. It's becoming more and more divisive and a little bit more scary in regards to democracy, and not being able to really pinpoint the reason behind some of these decisions and the reason why some people support some of these policies that we know are hurtful and harmful. That to me is what gives me pause, because, I minored in sociology. You want to understand people in the way that they think and what's going on, so that you can better help and you can understand, you can better connect. Is it just survival? I always say it's a survival thing, right? They're being told something's being taken away from them, right? But then trying to go a little layer below that. And right now I feel like as a country, we haven't figured that out, which is why we become more and more and more divisive and segregated in regards to our thoughts and what we support. So that's what gives me pause.
Well, Tuesday is coming.
Yes.
And I hope that everyone that is listening already has their plan to vote.
Yeah.
Pete, we thank you.
Yeah.
Keep doing the good work that you're doing, just like John Lewis, the good trouble. I appreciate all of that. Abina, Raffo, thank you for being here. Your wisdom goes way beyond your years, and you give me hope. You really do give us hope.
Dr. Beldancy, one thing I need to say is,
yes,
November 5th is a day, but it can't end on November 5th.
That's right.
Exactly.
And I think we're building a lot of build up, and they've talked about current, present, and future.
Yes.
We can't wait 3.5 years
Right.
to get engaged like this again. It should be
Not at
consistent.
all.
It should build up, and there should be higher expectations for ourselves, for the city, for the state, for our country, and for this world. And so don't make November 5th be the end for all.
That's right.
We there's a lot of work to be done.
A whole lot of work. Project 2025 is out there. That's what gives me pause. I'm scared of it. And I'm scared of those happily uneducated folks. Thank you for that one.
Need to educate the happily uneducated. DEI stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. It is something that you should be for. That's what we're here for. If you're listening to this, you are pro DEI. You have to be. It is such an important thing to our society, and it needs to keep going forever.
Yep, this conversation needs to keep going, but we have to bring this one to a close. Thank you for being here so much, and thank everyone for listening to the W.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.